Oh, right. Okay. So just a very quick hi, everyone. I hope everything is good with you all and wonderful. Merry November, December. Christmas is coming. Woohoo. Really looking forward to this. I love this time of year. Anyway, so I want to talk very quickly about a project I've been doing for quite a long while. I've written just over 60 pages on, and hopefully it's quite accessible on the celestial themes running through the epistles, and Paul's work specifically. I actually focus on Paul, St. Paul, um, extensively, and it should be an easy one. I'm hopefully going to be putting it up on Kindle. I always get this confused. Um, so it should be a reasonably quick read, and it heavily quotes the Bible. Well, sorry, St. Paul's work, really. But we go into some of the other epistles, so the Hebrews as well. I'm actually going to show you quickly. Let me just bring it up here. Hang on, how am I doing this? I want to put you on the screen. What am I doing? I don't want to remove you. Oh, fuck it. It doesn't matter. So anyway, yeah, and I wanted to just talk about very quickly this whole thing about mythicism versus Roman Providence versus literalism, all this kind of thing. Well, I don't obviously believe that the biblical Jesus existed. I think there's no tenable information that's historical that puts the heavily mythologized and non-historical Jesus anywhere in the historical record at all, and most scholars, I think, are very aware of this. I did want to say very quickly that Roman Providence and Mythicism are completely compatible with one another. There are 250 or so years between the first, if you just take 50 AD and 200, about 300 AD, when the first complete Bibles would be, New Testament, sorry, were being completed. You've got something like 250 years, and more than that, I'm sure, on either side, really. That's ample time for any number of hands to have gotten involved, any number of peoples and literary groups to have gotten together and started to change and mash around and create the Bible. We don't have much at all in the 2nd century. There are no clear copies of any Bibles from this period. Sorry, New Testaments, I must clarify, in this period. The memoirs of the apostles, quote unquote, is mentioned by, I think it might be Justin Martyr, in the mid 2nd century, but it's not clear as to whether he's talking about the epistolary literature, James, Peter, John, and so on, and St. Paul, obviously, and in anything to do with the Gospels. The Gospels are patently mythological. They have myth written all over them. And this is why Jesus is mythological if you're going to read the Gospels. It's a different character completely if you go to St. Paul, though, and you're reading much more about a celestial deity who exists primarily through revelation and through creatively reading the scriptures, which is what Paul says he does. He has no idea of an earthly Jesus Christ, really. He never mentions anything about an historical Christ. He skirts over every aspect of Christ's ministry in the Gospels we have, and so does Ignatius, really, and so does Clement I, so does Hebrews, so does James, so does Peter. They all do the same thing. Anyway, though, it's no surprise as to why mythicism has caught so much traction among people and scholars and so on over recent decades. It's abundantly clear that Christ is prefigured by any number of pagan deities, and it's obvious by now. It should be very clear. The zeitgeist came along and knocked everyone for six. They got a lot of information wrong, but then that information was looked at again. The research was updated significantly from the people like Percy Graves, who wrote the 16 Crucified Saviors, which was essentially, it's outdated information now. I don't think he had any intention of misleading people, but it was in its infancy, the scholarship then, and the archaeology, of course. Much of this had been found through the 20th century, so it's a lot easier now to say quite with clarity, with some determinate obviousness that these theories have now become largely fact. Joseph Atwell, and I watched an interview with him yesterday on Jacob Berman's YouTube channel with James Valiant. His work is extremely impressive, and it shows the clear impact of Titus on Jesus' story in Luke specifically. It's obvious now, and I really want to get Bayesian and look at I hope to be. I really think we should do what Richard Carey did and apply Bayesian mathematics to the two Joseph Atwell's thesis, and see what the kind of probabilities we're dealing with are when you look at the chronology of Titus's ministry or evangelion in Judea against Jesus's ministry in Judea, and go from Galilee, which was where they both started out, through into the wilderness, and then ending in Jerusalem, which is where they both end. And look at the 30 or so comparisons, and it's more than that, because there are all these other little stories and parables and so on that are weaved into the story that link Titus inextricably to Jesus Christ. Mark, with the astrological sequence again of events that we see as Jesus walking through the zodiac through that 1 year ministry in Mark. It's bloody obvious what's going on by now. And again, we should get Bayesian with that. I think it would be excellent to try and do some rigorous work on the mathematical probabilities of these things just being coincidence. They can't be coincidence. It makes no sense to just say Mythicism is the one, or Roman Providence is definitely the thing, and it's not Mythicism. They're obviously both true. And unfortunately, I don't know if I said that I got confused and I didn't hit the record button on my microphone here. So I've done this already, but there are 250 or so years between, I think I did say this, 250 years between, say, 50 AD and 300, when the Codex Vaticanus and the Sciatica, whatever it is, was written. There are plenty of opportunities for people to have contributed to this overall mythological compound with an historical figure as well. And obviously a complete dearth of information, as we well know, about an historical Jesus. The only references we get coming 40, 50 years after, are non-biblical, non-New Testament references, of course, coming after his death. And being extremely vague, and two of them most likely being forgeries, which relegates any of the extra biblical reference to Jesus into the 2nd century, when some kind of primitive gospels, I'm sure, were going around. So it doesn't help Jesus' literalism at all, unless you're looking carefully at the text and thinking with a clear mind, and not being, and you can't get religious here. Let's get historical, people, because there are some phenomenal stories actually in there that are inherent in the texts. It's all wonderful stuff. So I'm going to just I really wanted to show, what is it saying? Oh, here we go. All right, here we are. Yeah. So let me have a look at this quickly. So you'll see now what I'm looking at is the outline of the work I'm going to be doing. So we're going to look at some of the best references for an historical Jesus in St. Paul's epistles, and we're going to find that they're really not there, and there's such a huge gaping hole in this guy's reference to an historical Jesus, and such an argument from silence to be made. And I know arguments from silence can be considered logical fallacies, but it's so epic in what we're dealing with here that we must look at what we're seeing here as being literature that was not about a literal Christ, and Paul says as much. So this was very much in the literature all around at the time, this Hellenizing Judaism period, where Logos and some kind of messianic figure was being sought after. He came in this mode of Jesus Christ, but the first wranglings of Jesus Christ were not of an historical person. They were a celestial deity, as far as I can tell. And many people are now converging on this idea. So yeah, we're going to look at the seed of David, the Lord's Supper, and what it does and doesn't tell us. A couple of interpolations, which give us, say, Pontius Pilate, which were not in the original epistles. Female apostles, and what I put this whole Gnosticism and Paul's theology thing up here. I don't know whether this is going to be the final title, but Paul certainly looks very proto-Gnostic to me. His work was originally put out into the world by someone we would consider a Gnostic today, Marcion. Anyway, I'm going to leave you to it, but we don't need to be all like, this is the thing, or this is definitely the best interpretation here. It's obviously many ideas that went into the Gospels over time, celestial and astrological being two key components, and this whole thing coming basically out of a Roman authorship with a heavily Hellenized and Greek and Judaic aspects as well. But it's not one thing, guys. Mythicism is massive in the Bible, clearly, obviously, self-explanatorily so. And also Joseph Atwell's work, and others, James Valiant's as well, into the earliest Christians basically being members of the Flavian court, I think is unassailable. I'm going to leave you with that to think about and ponder on. Have a wonderful day. Please nuclear attack the like button. And feel free to just totally slam dunk the subscribe button if you're interested in this work as well. Okay, cool. Have a nice day, and I'll be getting that stuff out really soon. Before Christmas, I'm hoping. Anyway, thank you. All right, bye.